Progress.
She's with us.
Yes, I see.
All right.
Sorry. Oh, that's your
So it
pen.
is 5:34 PM. My name is Sarah Yoon, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Palm Springs. We're going to go ahead and call the July 7th meeting to order. Our first item of business is the election of officers. So we are going to elect chair and vice chair for the Historic Site Preservation Board. We have our city clerk, Brenda Cree, present here to help us with conducting the elections.
All right, thank you, Sarah. So at this time, I would like to entertain nominations for the chair for the Historic Site Preservation Board. And I'll take any nominations at this time.
I would like to nominate Kurt Bachman for chair.
Do you have any other nominations? Any further nominations?
I second the nomination.
There appear to be no further nominations. Then at this time, we'll declare the nominee is elected by unanimous consent. Okay.
Thank you.
So at this time, we'll take nominations. We'll take nominations for the position of vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Member Panessa for vice chair.
Any further nominations? Seeing none, we'll assume that by unanimous consent that Mark Panessa would be your vice chair. Can I receive a motion to accept the election of Mr. Bachman as your chair and Mr. Panessa as your vice chair? I would take a motion and a second, please.
So motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Sounds like we have a majority there, so we'll name right now. We'll accept those as your nominee for chair and vice chair. And at this time, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, your meeting.
Submitted in writing.
Do you want to switch places? No.
Okay, is the meeting officially started, or do I call that? Okay, so we're officially in. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Bachman,
Present?
Member Hare,
Present.
Vice Chair Panessa,
Present.
Member McCready,
Present.
Member Yarchevera,
Present.
Member Hyams,
Present.
and then Member Mashka Hitchcock.
Present.
Okay.
We have a quorum.
And may we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Yes, the agenda for this meeting was posted for public view in the locations that are in accordance with the city's policies. And Member Mashka Hitchcock's location was also noticed in accordance with the Brown Act for her participation in the meeting.
Okay. Does the board have any revisions to the agenda, including requests to remove items on the consent calendar for further discussion? Anyone? Nope. So I moved for the acceptance of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. By Panessa and Hare. Let's see. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, okay, we did that. So getting into this. All in favor, please say aye. Any all in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, moving on to public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Historic Site Preservation Board on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Although the Historical Site Preservation Board values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. There'll be 3 minutes assigned for each speaker. Testimony for public hearings will be taken at the time of the hearing. Staff, do we have any additional comments on a non-public hearing item or any item not on today's agenda?
I have not received any additional comments for non-public hearing items at this time.
Okay. Then we'll now close? Is there anything, Anthony, do you have anything?
There are, none of the online attendees have raised their hand.
Okay, very good. So now close the public comment and proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent calendar. Before we move on to the consent calendar, I'd like to take a quick moment to welcome our 2 new members. David, and David, you're going to have to help me with your Himes. Hyams, David Himes, and Larry Yarchiver. So welcome. Thank you. We're thrilled to have you here. Would you like to share any comments or tell us about yourselves?
Well, I probably have an interesting little story. I applied for Class 1 a few years ago, and it was taking a long time. So I heard that there were meetings here that you could show up to. So I go, I'll just show up and poke the bear and try to get this thing sped up. And I was so taken by the meeting itself that I came to a year and a half's worth of meetings. Every month, to me, it was exciting. And finally, I think they got tired of me just sitting in the cheap seats. Said, why did you? So here I am. So
And we're glad you're here.
thank you.
David?
I guess my wife and I have lived here in Palm Springs for coming up on a decade. Got involved in my neighborhood's history right out of the get-go. My wife and I occupy my grandparents' home. They were original owners back in the late 50s in our neighborhood, Little Beverly Hills. Anyway, that's what kind of started me, I suppose, on that journey, which has led me here.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Moving on to the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to provide comments on the draft minutes from June 2nd? May I have a motion to approve the June meeting minutes on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Moved by Member Panessa. May I have a second?
Second.
Second. Let's see. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I have
None.
an abstention since I wasn't
Okay,
there.
very
I was
good.
present.
Catherine was not with us, so 1 abstention and 6 yeas. So now moving on, public hearings. An application by Philip Monahan for historic site designation of the Burgess residence located at 550 Palisades Drive. Case Historic Site Preservation Board, number 174. Sarah?
So this is for the property address 550 Palisades Drive, the Burgess residence, currently classified as a Class 3 site. It's located in the historic tennis club neighborhood, a few doors down from the Fray 2 house on Palisades Drive. The current homeowners purchased the site in 2024 and has submitted this request for landmark, Class 1 landmark designation. So this is a single-family residence that consists of a main house, a guest house, a carport structure, and the home is built into the mountainside as seen in this aerial view. The elevation in which it is located allows for unobstructed panoramic views of downtown Palm Springs. If you look closely in this image, you'll see that the main structures, the swimming pool, and a majority of the hardscapes associated with this site are all on the lower parcel. There is a small rectangular parcel to the north of the home that contains a small portion of the stairs and hardscape surfaces going up further the mountain. So these are recent photographs that were taken on the site. As you can see, the left image shows the south elevation of the main house that incorporates the work of both Hugh Kaptor and Albert Frey. As stated in the Historic Resources Report, the initial design and concept for the 1,200 square foot home was designed by Hugh Captor for the Burgess Burgess family in 1957. In these photographs, you can also see the expansive use of fenestration, the deep wooden overhangs, and then, of course, in the 1960s, Frey added to the original home. The rock walls that were designed by Hugh Captor were removed and were placed with more floor-to-ceiling glazing. And the center photograph shows the views from the patio of the property. It does incorporate the stone arches that are fenced along the edge, which were designed by Frey. And it's an integration of the natural materials with the modern aesthetic. Now, according to the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 8.05.070, the site must meet one or more of the following criteria to be considered historic. This property is unique in that it is a site that was identified as a potential historic site before even the Class 3 inventory was completed. Its historic significance was recognized by the preservation community due to its connection to notable architects, but also its exceptional ability to represent post-World War era residential development in Palm Springs, and also the idea of design experimentation that was happening during this time. While the home started with Captor's vision for desert modernism and mid-century design principles, the later additions by Frey shows an expressionist style of design using mirrored glass, curvilinear steel structures for the guest house, carports, and shade structures that are seen throughout the property. And of course, to be reclassified a Class 1 site, the property also needs to exhibit a level of integrity when it comes to the topics that are outlined here. The location of the structures, the landscape features, and the site all remain unchanged. The design integrity of the home by both Captor and Frey remain extant on the site. The setting is virtually unchanged, and the workmanship needed to create such a high-quality design project is evident when you are on the site. The craftsmanship also that's demonstrated with the stonework that you see on the site is also noteworthy. So I know this is a lot of text, and all of this is outlined in the draft resolution. Since Frey's additions to Captor's original design was relatively in character with that original design, the list of character-defining features from this period are listed together, as was in the report. The flat roof line, the fenestration, the cantilevered overhangs, the swimming pool, and the simple V-shaped floor plan are all considered character-defining features on the site. And then we have our Albert Frey additions from '78 and beyond. They show a design that actually departs from the previous design phase that was started by Hugh Captor. The use of the steel framework and the barreled vault design of the roofs, they all reflect a very expressionist idea of design. The mirrored glass, while not a new material for that period, it was a new material that was introduced to the site. The second design iteration of the Burgess home is also considered a historically significant period. And then, of course, the report also goes into detail identifying non-contributing elements. The Burgess family, as revealed in the report, was heavily involved in the design and build of their home. The non-contributing elements that are listed here document some of those changes that weren't assessed to either Frey or Captor. For instance, the grandchildren's room that was identified in the report was added later, and it was not designed by Frey nor Captor. In fact, I think there's documentation in the report that talks about Frey commenting about the design of the grandchildren's room. And then, of course, we have the scalloped roof line on the south side of the home. That was actually brought back to the original aesthetic that was contributed to Captor based on the design drawings. And so that was a restorative action that the current homeowners have taken. Identified as an important site in Palm Springs, even before the city inventory was completed, 550 Palisade Drive was already considered an important landmark. The report brought together all of these findings to show how that site meets the criteria for reclassification. Staff finds that as a whole, criteria 3 and 5 are met, and the integrity of the site is absolutely intact. It is exciting to see this application come before the city as an owner-initiated application. Staff recommends that HSPB adopt the draft resolution for designating this site a Class 1 historic site, and to be listed on the local register of Palm Springs. With that, I'll conclude my staff report.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I can take those. And then I think we have some public comment lists here for you as well.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board, from the staff?
I have one quick observation. I thought it was a real treat to be able to see two genius architects on the same canvas on one property. That was a real treat. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And the other thing I wanted to mention is kudos, I think, goes out to the owners for taking that arched motif fascia board. Okay, there you go. And bringing it back to the original Hugh Captor fascia board. And I think we heard from Mr. Monahan that there was a phone conversation with Hugh Captor. I don't know if that ever came up, but I would imagine that, you know, if it did, he would have had a smile for that. So kudos.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I was just going to make just a comment on the character defining feature page. The spelling of the first name of Mr. Ingham is shown as O-L-A-F, and I believe it's O-L-A-V. I checked some old phone books today, and he was showing up there as O-L-A-V, Olav.
That's correct.
And I believe in his obituary as well. Just I'm a stickler for names.
That's why I couldn't find him online.
Any further questions or comments? Do we go to the outside, or do we open it up to the rest of, which goes first?
We can open up the public hearing portion of the.
Okay, yeah, I'll open a public hearing and we'll hear from those who are in attendance, and then you said you had some other things that would add. Or is it just this? It's just, okay. I thought maybe there was someone online or,
I know, we will ask that if they.
okay,
anyone
we'll
online
get to
wishes
that
speak,
one.
they'll-
Okay. So, anyone wishes to speak on this, filled out an application?
I will,
Should I can hand
yeah,
it over
perfect, yeah.
this night. Do you want to just go ahead and call the name card?
Oh, okay.
They've already filled it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
James Crump.
Would you like me to stand?
Yeah, if you could come to the table, identify yourself if you would, please. And
My name is James Crump.
Please feel free.
please sit if you like, yes.
Along with my wife, Ronnie Sassoon, we are the new owners of the Burgess residence. I first want to thank the board for considering this Class 1 historic designation. And after we acquired the property in 2024, we spent a great deal of time really trying to understand the history of the architecture and learn about the previous owners of the property, the Burgess family, of course, and then later the Meyermans. We then set out to undertake a very comprehensive but very, very sensitive renovation that we think that maintains the original visions of the two architects, Hugh Captor and Albert Frey, as well as their legacies within mid-century desert modernism. I want to thank Philip Monahan, who's worked with us tirelessly over the last 18 months, putting together this report. Ronnie and I are very, very proud of the house. We're very proud of the 90-plus page report and application that Philip's produced, which we are very confident that is to date the most accurate and, I would say, definitive account of this property. I also want to thank Marko Stojic, who's here tonight, and also Brad Dunning, who are both here to join me in support of this historic designation nomination. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So next. Brad Dunning.
Good evening. My name is Brad Dunning. I'm a former HSPB board member and a former board member of the PSPF. So, boy, things have come a long way since I was on the board. We used to meet in a little conference room. And I don't know how to talk, I can only read, but I promise it'll be really brief. When I became friends with Albert Frey in 1994 up at his house, one of the first things he asked me to do was walk down the road with him and meet Bill and Clara Burgess. And to see his designs there. It was a revelation visiting that Burgess house for the first time. I'll never forget it. The combination of the site, the stonework designed by Frey and constructed over 15 years by Olive Ingham, the original house by Hugh Captor, the signature sunshades by Frey scattered around the site, the mirrored pavilion guest house by Frey, the boulder in the living room, the knoll and other collectible furniture, and not to mention the very stylish Paisley-wearing Bill Burgess and the Poochie-wearing Clara, and their wild children who showed me how to jump off the roof into the pool when I was much younger, and among other things I probably shouldn't mention. They were quite the characters. It was like I had entered a special Palm Springs world on steroids. When pressed for a description, all I could say was it was like a combination of Palm Springs and Acapulco with an open bar. It had everything I loved: a spectacular view, great architecture, great design, and tons of style. It was one of the most Palm Springsy houses I had ever seen. Frey's own living room boulder is world famous, but he also built around another large boulder in the Burgess's expanded living room. And Frey placed a huge boulder in the Russell swimming pool next door to that he, Frey, designed. It's such a cliche that mid-century modern wanted to blend the indoors and outdoors. No one did this with more drama, confidence, and theatricality than Frey. Welcome to the neighborhood, a big Frey-placed boulder for every house on the block. Which people always talk about that boulder in his own house, but each of those houses has a giant Frey boulder. Now that the house has passed to new stewards, and with their love and dedication, the property has been restored with respect to the architecture, history, and design in every way. With Ronnie and James's art and furniture collection, the house is now more serious and more stylish than ever. I think it can compete with any house internationally. It is honestly, in my opinion, one of the top 10 best and most significant houses and sites in Palm Springs. Thank you.
And now, Mark Ostich, please. Have a seat, let us know name and address and...
Okay. My name is Mark Ostoich, and Liz, my wife, is in the audience in the green dress. And we live next door at 660 Palisades Drive. We've lived there for a number of years, and the Marmons were dear friends of ours, and we were so happy when Ronnie and James bought the house and moved in, because they are wonderful people. So we're very familiar with the house, we're very familiar with the property, and they are outstanding, both of them. And I agree with Brad that Ronnie and James have done a fantastic job of returning that house to its original vision. And we strongly support the application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. By the way, we have a very small neighborhood, and 3/4 of us are here tonight, but we're all in favor. We're all in favor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone online that would like to comment?
No one online has raised their hand to speak.
Okay. Seeing there are no further speakers on this item, we'll close the public hearing, and now the action is with the board. Any comments or further discussion from the board?
What did you say, Sarah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh. I'll go first.
Okay. Member Panessa.
It is a pleasure to see a house that well cared for over decades. As you said, it is so surprising and interesting to see two of Palm Springs' most prominent architects kind of work on the same property in different periods, different times, not together, but on the same property. In the condition that it's in now, I don't see, in my opinion, I don't see any reason not to give it a Class 1.
Thank you. Member Hare, please.
I would confirm everything you've said to say that it really is an interesting and wonderful opportunity. And I also think it's extraordinary and wonderful that it is owner-initiated. Thank you for that vote of confidence in the historic preservation ethics of Palm Springs. And I mean, I'm ready to make a motion if that is what's next.
Any further? Member McCready?
Philip, I'd like to thank you for a very good application. Thoroughly researched, helped us make decisions. And the tour.
I'm sorry if I
Non-air
dragged you up that
conditioned tour. We made it, thank you. Thank you. I do hope, just as a personal aside, that this is a stunning house, that it will be occasionally a place where the public can see it, because from down below, of course, you can't. I've driven by there hundreds of times, and I always wondered if that was up there. So thank you very much for doing what you've
We
done.
plan to share the house. In fact, we've shared it during Modernism Week, and we have already scheduled some events at the house for the next Modernism iteration.
I would fully agree. I'd add to that with everyone's comments, but it is a wonderful piece that it is the evidence of two different designers, and it works. It's better for it, I think, that two different architects influenced the design, and it all worked out beautifully. And I think that's really amazing. When you work with architects, you probably have a sense of that. So any other comments from the board?
Looks like Catherine.
Does Catherine have thoughts from afar? Okay.
Jeffrey, you're up.
So call for a motion, please. Member Hare.
I would like to make a motion that the Historic Site Preservation Board recommend that the City Council adopt Resolution HSPB number 174, recommending that the City Council designate the Burgess residence located at 550 Palisades Drive as a Class 1 landmark historic resource, HPSB number 174, APN number 513-110-043.
Can I have a second?
I would second that.
Member Himes, second that. Any other discussion? Seeing there's none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? No, so it's 7 in favor. So moving on to unfinished business, there's none. So we'll move on to new business. Request by the City of Palm Springs for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish 2 existing structures at the Town and Country Center, Class 1 site. The address of the buildings is 171 and 181 North Indian Canyon Drive. Staff, can you present the report, please?
You can just give us a couple seconds. It
Sure.
looks like we're lost our presentation on the
Uh-oh.
screen.
Take all the time you need.
Sure.
Taken captive by the technology.
Not mine.
There we go.
There we go.
Any business?
Yes, thank you for your patience on that.
Thank you.
All right, the next item before the board today is a request for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish 2 existing structures at the Town and Country Center. These 2 structures are address 171 and 181 North Indian Canyon Drive. This application is being submitted by the City of Palm Springs with the intent of purchasing the site for a new fire station. The aerial map generally shows the area of land the city intends to purchase from the current owners. This parcel includes the vacant lot to the north, the internalized courtyard space, the Town and Country building addressed 169 North Indian Canyon Drive, Building 165, Building 171, and Building 181. The request that is before the board tonight is a request to demolish Buildings 171 and 181 shown in red on the map. To provide just a little bit of background, the Town and Country Center, HSPB number 51, was designated a Class 1 historic site in 2016. The boundaries for this designation included the entire center, which was a collection of buildings that made up the outdoor shopping center. The center building included was designed by Paul R. Williams and A. Quincy Jones. And it sits positioned along North Indian Canyon with the iconic stairwell and the extruded planter feature facing the internalized courtyard. The top left image shows the building along, the top right image shows the building along Indian Canyon Drive, and that is an image from 1952. And then I did include an axonometric aerial view of the site that was in the original designation report, showing the designated site in its entirety. Again, this is just for context. The orange area shows the structures that are facing North Palm Canyon Drive, and the area shown in red are the 2 buildings that are requested for removal. These photographs show the existing conditions of both Building 171 and 181 along North Indian Canyon Drive. One important consideration is Building 171's relationship to the adjacent historic Town and Country Center. The arcade canopy spans across Building 169 and 171, and the streamlined modern cantilevered overhang does terminate at Building 171, making portions of these architectural features physically attached to the building that's proposed for demolition. The site diagrams that were provided in your packet provide a clear illustration of the portions of the property the city intends to acquire, as well as the locations of the 2 buildings proposed for removal to accommodate the footprint of a future fire station. The features that are highlighted in green represent character-defining architectural elements that are currently attached to Building 171. As part of the request, staff recommends that these features be thoroughly documented so that they can be accurately reconstructed during a future phase for the project. As we all saw on the site, they are in various states of structural disrepair. These illustrations were also included in your agenda packet. The upper image shows the streetscape in context with Building 169, which is proposed to be protected in place. The condition of the arcade cover and the front elevations for both Building 171 and 181. The diagram on the far bottom left-hand corner shows the infill area that was identified. That's a small area, it's like a wedge-shaped pie between 171 and 165. Again, it's a very complex area where there were existing buildings before, and then there were added architectural features, and then the work of various architects that all contributed to this outdoor mall. As seen on the site, the cantilevered architectural feature will need to be stabilized and likely rebuilt in areas that are attached to the building. Unfortunately, one of the slides didn't make it to this presentation, but it is recorded in the staff report. Any recommendations or requests for demolition and alteration to Class 1 designated site must meet the relevant criteria listed in Section 8.05.110E. Again, as listed in the staff report, the request to demolish Building 181 does not materially impair or impact the designated site or any character-defining features. The removal of this nondescript two-story building that is adjacent to the vacant lot to the south has no adverse impact to the site as a whole. Also discussed in the staff report, Building 181 does not materially impair the designated historic resource, and then the Building 171 requires additional consideration. Although it is not visually connected to 181, it does share a fascia feature, and maybe what I can do is go back to this image to help show what we're looking at here. Although it's not 171 and 181, both of these buildings, according to the building permit records, predate the construction of the building that was designed by Paul R. Williams and A. Quincy Jones. The original architect and builders for these two buildings remain unknown, and 171 does derive its significance primarily from its role as a defining building mass to help further enclose the centralized courtyard, which was identified in the original designation application. Again, Building 171's other primary role is that it becomes the attachment point for several of the architectural features that contribute to a more comprehensive and cohesive design for the complex. So for this reason, staff recommends a comprehensive documentation of these character-defining features so that they can be accurately reconstructed during the future phase of this project. From an architectural standpoint, Building 171 and 181 do not exhibit the same design language or level of significance as the principal town and country buildings identified in the historic designation. Although demolition of these buildings is not considered a restorative action, the city's proposed rehabilitation and stabilization of Building 169, North Indian Canyon Drive, represents an important first step towards preserving the site's most significant historic resource, and of course, preventing it from further deterioration. Can we make that large? I would like to take a moment and go back to the main objectives of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Our goal is to protect, stabilize, and enhance historic resources, also to foster civic beauty and strengthen our local economy by promoting the use of historic resources. Staff finds that the request will be the first step in achieving these goals. The historic resource and the character-defining features will be restored and protected while making room for appropriate adaptive reuse on the site. And of course, it strengthens the commitment towards this goal. Staff recommends approval with the following list of conditions. This is in your packet and in the staff report. But staff does recommend that archival documentation be included as part of this approval. This is specific to the character-defining features that are attached to Building 171. And again, the idea behind this is to use this as a document to help the next development phase for the site. Shoring and stabilization plans will be required, Prior to the submission of the demolition permit for these two structures, a detailed shoring and stabilization plan will be required and will be reviewed by the city's building official for sign-off. We do want to also include a commitment to a preservation and restoration plan that details how Building 169 North Indian Canyon will be assessed and preserved, and that being done by qualified historic preservation experts. There are some immediate repairs that are needed for the historic Building 169, so we do propose a condition to conduct an assessment of the existing structure to see what is necessary to stabilize that site from further deterioration. Any sort of new development proposed on this site as a Class 1 site would require a certificate of appropriateness, specifically for the new fire station, to be reviewed by this body. And of course, that proposal needs to meet the same guidelines for alterations to a historic site. And then lastly, all of the design-related aspects, we do recommend that a historic preservation consultant be part of the team. So with these conditions, staff feels strongly that the request for the removal of the two structures, 171 and 181, meet the required criteria for alteration and demolition on a Class 1 site. If we have any other questions, I'm happy to answer those. And it does seem like we do have one speaker who would like to speak on this item, so it is at the discretion of the chair to take that on as well.
Should we begin with comments from the board and then jump to that, or what's the preferred order?
It's up to the chair, but if you...
Let's take comments from the board first, if that's okay, and then we can leave that in the outside. Any comments?
Sarah, can you go back to the overhead? Thank you. So, there. So just a couple of questions so I can understand kind of the bigger picture. The city's buying the entire complex, is that correct?
That is not correct. So
Okay.
the purchase of the site that the city is looking at is the area that's outlined in blue. The designation does exceed beyond that, so.
Okay, so the
It
city's
includes
buying,
this area.
they're excluding the Palm Canyon buildings. Okay. And then if we were to approve the demolition of 171 and 181, is there any plan for 169? Is that still in its current state, no plan? It is a Class 1, but there's nothing planned for it.
Currently, the plan for 169 is to do the immediate kind of assessment and stabilize that site, but the use and the future plans for that has not been addressed yet.
Okay. And in the part that the city is purchasing, it includes part of that, I think it's referred to as a cantilevered overhang, but if identified as a, just lost the verbiage.
Character defining feature?
Thank you, yes. That would have to be preserved.
So are you referring to the areas in green?
Actually, no, I'm referring to, so we have that kind of, what looks like an H, sort of, yes.
The
That,
cantilever that expands throughout the entire
right, but
interior
part of
itself.
it is in what the city is buying, part of it is not.
Correct,
But the whole thing would be preserved.
correct,
Okay,
correct. So the designation boundaries don't match up with the ownership boundaries, if that makes sense.
yeah, and I think that's what you just described is why I was kind of having a little confusion. That makes much more sense to me now, thank you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the recommendations that are attached to the proposal cover that. It's sort of the beginning of the investigation and how to manage those overlaps, because it is confusing and complex as to who and what and where and how. So I think those are key to look at.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more question. 171 in red can be demolished, not affecting 165. And I think that when we were at the site visit, that's what he was describing. But I guess I wanted to verbalize that 165 is still protected.
Correct. And the diagram in the far bottom left-hand corner there is showing that condition. So that little sliver was identified as like an infill building. So it really was two buildings that were kind of against each other, and then they filled in that infill with that pie shape to connect it. And so when we go in to do the demo, we're gonna follow the structural wall that was part of 165 originally.
And that's that wall he showed us inside that dark, dirty, rundown door
Yes.
that we stepped inside of. Okay.
Scary part.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Member McCready.
Sarah, you and your colleagues did a very thorough job analyzing this, and your list of conditions makes a great deal of sense. So I want to thank you for the diligence that all of you must have taken to get to this point. I think from an architectural perspective, from my perspective, 171 and 181 are terribly thrilling. I have no problem supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Any further discussion from the board, comments?
One thing that I would, and I almost feel like we need to pick up where our former member Peter was always concerned about this. So I know it's Town and Country LLC owns, is that correct? If I had read.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We are purchasing it from
Purchasing it.
Town and Country LLC.
Okay. And I just know when we were at the site yesterday, there was a lot of buildings around there. And I know that you'd mentioned that there's really no plan for, some of them. But is there any plan for a plan?
What I can tell you right now is that it will be a phased project. I think our priorities are with securing the site for the future fire station. And so that is kind of the first priority that we have for this site. We know that there's a lot that can be done and imagined on this site, but we'll probably be taking them phase at a time. I think we are excited about the notion of having this section of town, but again, I think that will come later, and any sort of proposal that impacts the exterior will come before this board. So we'll be updated on that.
And that's if you even go back to the recommendations attached to the request, I think that explains, that's the beginning of that, sort of the safety features of planning going forward of who and how. I'm glad to see that in the report, so.
I have perhaps just a curiosity question. I guess being new, I can get away with a few of those. Have we in the past approved other demolitions of what I'll call standing Class 1 structures?
So sometimes there's like a level of partial alterations where there would be a wall or things that would be removed to make room for additions. In this case, we have a unique condition where we have multiple structures on a site, and they all have varying levels of significance. And so I can't say that I've taken a project through with this board on a specific demolition request. But again, that's where our criteria come into place, where we are evaluating all of the requests based on the 4 criteria that are listed. And so if they meet those criteria, if we can make a conclusion saying that the request does not create a significant impairment to the historic resource, then we are allowed to make those adjustments and changes to adaptively make the site more viable. So it's, again, they are all case by case, and we rely on the criteria to make sure that we are making changes that are respecting the historic resources identified.
And in terms of CEQA, this was defined as a the wording is a project.
Correct, correct.
Just demolition and CEQA for me, again, at this moment in my career here, just strikes. So can you help me understand that? Does it go
Sure.
back to that significance of, we're talking, of course, of 171 Indian Canyon?
Sure, sure. I think at the end of the day, as a lead agency, we are looking to see if this action is creating a substantial adverse impact. And so we are looking at that, and of course, we're looking at the whole of the project and all of the character-defining features and all of the buildings and the historical significance that is identified with this project. And so it is through that assessment that, yes, it is a project, but we find that the request for the demolition of these two structures does not result in a substantial adverse impact to the historic resource in the site, such that it now no longer conveys its historic significance. And so by that definition, we are, as the lead agency, deeming it categorically exempt because it does not create that sort of adverse impact.
Anyone else? Okay. Would anyone like to state a motion? Oh, we have a comment, I'm sorry. Wasn't in my script. Nikki McLaughlin,
That would be me.
please come and join us, and if you'll, 3 minutes, and let us know who and why and.
I'm reading actually something from your former colleague, Peter Maruzzi,
Very good.
which came in at 3:36 this morning
We're eager to hear from Peter.
from Paris.
Yes.
If I'd like to pass these around. He said apparently it helps to have things itemized when you're making discussions afterwards.
Very good.
So
Thank you.
I'm doing my duty.
Can someone send me this? I
Of the
was-
Palm Springs Modern Committee, and I'm here representing the board. And we agree with just about everything that's going on here. We're not opposed to the demolition, but we have one bullet point. So it's the third bullet point on page 1 of the staff report under Preservation Restoration Plan, stating, prepare a detailed repair and restoration plan once a use is set for the building. So we believe the repair and restoration plan should begin immediately, independent of the ultimate use of the building. For many years, the main building at 169 has experienced significant deterioration, as you've witnessed, both inside and out. Delaying the preparation of a detailed repair and restoration plan until a future use is determined could result in unnecessary delays and continued deterioration of this important historic resource. Whether the eventual use is an office, retail, restaurant, or any other purpose, the city's immediate priority should be stabilizing, repairing, and restoring the building. The city should establish a clear restoration timetable that includes implementation milestones, regular progress reporting, and accountability measures. The Historic Site Preservation Board should review and approve both the timetable and the plan and receive periodic progress reports throughout the restoration process. This is one of Palm Springs' most significant historic properties, and we have a unique opportunity to ensure its preservation through a clear, transparent, and accountable restoration process. We respectfully encourage the board to recommend these provisions as part of its review.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We may have skipped over, I saw Catherine signaling to us. Kath, can we loop her in?
Oh. I just asked if I could get an email with Pete's, with former member Maruzzi's comments on it.
Yes.
We'll find a way.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I agree, by the way.
Well, thank you.
There you go. Okay, so we have that. Anyone like to make a motion?
Before, can I make one
Another
more comment?
Please.
2 comments, actually. One is, I believe, I would support demolishing these 2 buildings for 2 reasons. One is, I believe the heart of town and country would still be preserved. And that, for me, is primarily that 169 building. The other is, I think preservation and public safety have to, be considered. And this city needs a new fire station. And so I think that demolishing these two Class 1 buildings satisfies that requirement, but still maintains the heart of that center.
Thank you.
I agree with this. And Jeffrey, are you in a position to make a motion?
Well, I think there's still a little bit of discussion.
Some
Yeah.
discussion, it seems there is, so.
Oh, all right.
Member Hare, would you like to step in?
Well, I too share the sort of trepidation of putting off a restoration of the 165, I think it is. But I also see in this, in these recommendations that, there is stabilization, an assessment and stabilization is to be done immediately. And then it seems to be just sort of left for that ambiguous future. And I don't know exactly how we can do this because, again, it's clear here that when we say once funding is secured, and we don't, as far as I know, funding is for that particular aspect of it hasn't been secured, or at least it hasn't been stated that it has. So what I'm getting to is the point that these recommendations are good. I just wonder if we can strengthen them in any way to make that future restoration a little less ambiguous in terms of waiting for a use, for instance, before full restoration goes forward. And since we are, as a board, we have only purview on exteriors, the envelope, it seems to me that that envelope could be and should be restored as part of this, as part of the new project, which is phase 1, which is the fire station. I think that we don't need to know what the eventual use is to actually take care of that envelope, which then is going to help preserve the site as a whole.
Anyone else?
I would just like to, I didn't catch your name.
Flynn Fagg, Assistant City Manager.
Oh, okay, got it. So I'm just kind of wondering if there's anybody that can address anything that has been discussed on this building.
Yeah, certainly. We could definitely agree to preparing the detailed assessment and restoration plan. The thing that becomes the biggest handicap for us is the timetable, because we do have quite a number of major projects going on right now. Convention Center, the fire station, of course, the library is under the way, the swim center, etc. It's a little bit difficult for us to commit to a specific timetable. I will say that as the city is looking towards our expanded needs in terms of office space, there is a definite need in the next couple of years that we will need additional space. And while we haven't specifically identified the building for use as city office space, that could be a likely use at some point in the future. So again, I think that we're more than happy to go ahead and work on a repair and restoration plan sooner rather than later. It's just the timetable in order to do that is a little more difficult. There are some immediate repair needs that need to be addressed right away. One of those is the roof of the building. We've already had our public works team take an assessment of the roof and are beginning to put together a repair budget on that. There are elements of the fascia, there's some wood deterioration and things like that that need to be repaired right away. We would also like to repaint the building, get a good coat of paint on it, and to the correct colors, as Ms. McLaughlin and I have talked about. So there are some immediate repairs.
Sorry, they're en route to the colors.
That's fine. So there are some immediate things that we want to do right away, but we're happy to start working on the restoration plan. It's just the timeline and being able to commit to that is the one difficulty that we would have.
Can I ask you a question? What you're referring to is really about building 165?
169.
169, I'm sorry, I keep
Yes.
mixing that up.
Correct.
169, okay, thank you.
So I did hear during the discussion, structurally, I don't know if the word was, we don't want to see the thing fall down in an earthquake while we're waiting for a restoration plan. So was there some type of a structural, immediate addressing that we're going to do to make sure that the building wouldn't collapse?
That could be done as part of the repair and restoration plan to identify any seismic upgrading that would be necessary. And that would inform the city what we need to do more immediately.
So it sounds like you have a number of these things already in your minds. You're already doing them. You have a plan for repairs and paint and so forth. But to have a total understanding of potential future use and cost for renovation would be unlikely that you'd have that now. I see no reason to hold up the progress on the other space, 171 and 181.
I have one comment. With the demolition of the two Indian Canyon buildings, I've got to think that the new fire station becomes the priority. As Member Panes was saying, we need to get that done. So that would be the priority on the site. Can they work in conjunction, the whole site, or is we're just going to see the fire station coming quicker, stabilize the rest, and then move after the fire station? And what is the window for the fire station construction expected to be? 2 years?
Approximately 2 years is what we anticipate. There's still a bit of work that has to be done before we can close escrow. We also have the RFP for the architect and the contractor that we still need to put out. And then design work and construction work. So that entire process will be about 2 years plus some additional months.
Yeah, okay.
So that is the priority. However, if we do commit to preparing the repair and restoration plan, that will start to give us an idea of some of the costs, that we can start planning for that. So there's no reason why we can't start anticipating that work while we're under construction on the fire station.
That's what I wanted to hear, yeah, that one isn't dependent on the other. They can proceed, and we all understand that the fire station is the priority, but don't let the other languish. Okay. Anyone else?
Is it too late to add one more public comment?
Staff?
That is the discretion of the chair.
The discretion of the chair, please join us, Deborah.
Why, thank
We
you.
would like to hear.
I promised myself I would sit on my hands and not speak, but I've been compelled. And partly because of the participation.
Can you introduce yourself? Not
Oh,
everybody
I'm
knows.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That's
Please.
presumptuous,
Sorry,
isn't it?
it was my fault.
My name is Deborah Hovel, and I am a 16-year permanent resident of Palm Springs, a passionate preservationist, but also a futurist. And one of the things that compels me to speak is the participation of such dedicated community members. Thank you all for representing our greater interests here in Palm Springs. What I want to mention briefly is something that I haven't heard spoken about here tonight, and that is that while you are agreeing to demolish two relatively unimportant, in all of our opinions, buildings, you
Not
are the
yet.
Historic Site Preservation Board, and what is going to be built in this very important new fire station is going to have to live alongside the very important Town and Country Center. And I think the Frey Fire Station once. So when you're participating in reviewing the RFPs, et cetera, and participating in the project, I just want to reiterate, please bear in mind the historic importance of the building that it'll be filling that empty tooth spot. It's such an important and a wonderful opportunity for our city. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I think Sarah and I discussed this, if I can throw my 2 cents in, that because the new fire station sits down on the Class 1 site,
Right.
it comes back to us to evaluate in the way you're discussing what the city produces
It's
through
a
the
great
process.
opportunity.
A huge opportunity. I agree.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I would expect.
Yep.
Ask that. That's.
Yes, does this then come back to the city's design review committee first?
Because it's on the Class 1, Sarah can speak to this more concisely, but I believe, yes, it does. It will come back to us, the design will.
So it would be considered a major alteration to a Class 1 site, and so those do come before the board for review. We actually did also include that as a condition of approval for tonight. If you look at,
So we get to decide if we like the design of the fire station?
well,
Sort of.
your purview is using the criteria that's before you. So yes, you would, within the parameters of the criteria and how it impacts the existing historic resource, you would be able to review that project.
Catherine has a question behind you, and then I have a question. Let's go to Catherine, please.
Yeah, I just have a question about the parcels. I just want to be clear that the parcel that it's currently on, it's already been divided. Like, it looks like the original Town and Country Center, right? It occupies like the frontage from Palm Canyon back, but the site has already been. I just want to make clear that if the site has already been like separated in two, or if we are approving that now.
You mean in regards to ownership?
No, just in terms of designation, like site designation, is just what I mean.
And again, I think this is where it can be a little bit confusing, but the designation essentially is on both parcels. It doesn't follow the ownership and how it's been.
It's defined by the original designation of this site. So anything that happens there will probably end up back here.
Yeah, so if you look at the original designation resolution, it does spell out exactly where that designation boundary is. And when we look at the parcels, it will now potentially span two owners. If that makes sense.
Okay, so we are basically approving the separation of these two parcels.
You are not approving the separation of the parcels. You are just looking at the demolition request for the one parcel.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because they've already been separated.
Yeah, the separation of parcels is not under your purview.
Okay.
One little odd question. It comes back to us because of the Class 1 status, the site, the bigger site, the fire station. Does it go before the architectural review also? Or who else might have a finger in the design?
Go ahead.
Oh, yes.
I'm just curious. It seems a fairly complex, we know this is a very complex situation. I'm curious how that works.
Technically, city buildings are not required to go through the standard process of Planning Commission and Architectural Review Committee. However, because this is going to the Historic Site Preservation Board, we may also want input from Architectural Review Committee as well.
Okay.
So we're still in discussions about what that process should be, but we definitely know that it does require to come back to the Historic Site Preservation Board.
Everybody's watching.
And as has been said in public comment, this is an important site.
Yeah, it's big.
Like the In-N-Out burger.
Wow. We'll skip over that.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? Well, okay, later.
Sorry.
Would anyone like to state a motion for the request?
I will make a motion.
Member Payanes. Member
Let me
Payanes,
see, what,
please.
I am making a motion to approve the request by the City of Palm Springs for a certificate of appropriateness - major to demolish two existing structures at the Town and Country Center, the Class 1 site, addresses 171 and 181 North Indian Canyon Drive. Did I put everything in there I needed?
With the
With the, I'm sorry, with including the staff recommendations for that approval. Thank you.
Perfect. Sounds good. Can I have a second?
Second. Jeffrey's closer.
Member Hare, second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No, so we have 7 in favor to 0. Moving on. Moving on to reports, requests, and comments. Are there any brief general comments and/or issues of concern from members of the Preservation Board? We got it all out. Does staff have any comments for us?
I do. I actually have quite a list. I can go over those really quickly. The first thing that's on my list here is we will be scheduling a special meeting to review one more project. I've had a majority of members confirm July 22nd, so I'll be in touch with a time for that meeting. So if you can just watch your emails for the next couple days, that would be great, and we can go ahead and get that scheduled and confirmed. The second comment I have is I've received a training opportunity from the California Office of Historic Preservation. I know we've talked a lot about potential training opportunities for our board. And so this is an online training opportunity available on July 17th, which is a Friday. It's from 10 to 1. What I will do is go ahead and forward that invite. It's actually on the topic of climate change and literacy for historic properties, and I think that's of interest to many people. And so I'll go ahead and forward that over. And if you wish to RSVP, I believe you're able to sign up and attend that. I think it's a webinar format, but I'll go ahead and send that out. So if you want to just check your emails for that, again, that's going to be on July 17th, which is a Friday.
Sounds good.
On a computer note, I was informed that everyone has access to their city emails. So all communication coming from the city will go through our Outlook email. I was notified that you have to access the Outlook email through the website. You can no longer access it through the app if that's how you were accessing it in the future. So just a quick note there. We are dark the month of August, so after our special meeting, you will have a break from me. But we'll come back with a lot more on the docket starting in September. Our first meeting is actually September 1st, which puts our site visit on August 31st. So don't ignore your emails for the month of August. You won't have to see me physically, but you'll still be hearing from me. So if you want to go ahead and check your emails so that we can set up that site visit. And then I do want to start conversations about the HSPB symposium. So we'll start to kind of talk about that and get some ideas going for that as well. And then the last item I have here is I just wanted our board to know that City Council did expand the HSPB board with one more alternate. The alternate member has been appointed. The start date for the alternate is going to actually, their appointment date lands on July 24th, which means they will be joining us in September. I did want everyone to know that we will have one more alternate joining us for the September meeting.
Question?
Can you explain what alternate means? It's not like a jury? Or is it?
So the City Council expanded our board to have an alternate who participates in our conversations, but they're not a voting member unless we have a voting member that's absent.
Okay.
So that helps us to keep our numbers odd, so that when we have votes, we don't end up with an even vote. But yes, it kind of helps us with our board making sure we have quorum.
I see.
Okay. One other comment, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment on, you had said 717 for the California Preservation Training.
Yes.
If you are a member of that, which I just joined them, they sent out an email today, I believe it was today, on that training for 717.
Thank you. Anything else?
I can't believe I didn't introduce Flynn to our board, but.
We know who he is.
It's great to have him here.
Yes,
He has
it's
been
great.
with us.
Thank you for being with us. And anything else? Then I will call the adjournment of the Historical Site Preservation Board, and looking forward to our next meeting, as Sarah said, September 1st. Seems like a million miles away. This room, 5:30. Thank you all for participating. It was a great meeting.
Thank you. Getting to know you.